in time you get to know teams and you get to hate teams based off their being bullies and all of that. A lot of people in baseball kind of hate the Red Sox and Yankees, especially the Yankees, for being bullies and all that. But in recent times, you could say the Houston Astros are worse with bullies and all that. In football, you could say the Oakland Raiders are kind of bullies, or Kansas City in a sense, because they bribe their refs, apparently. In hockey, it was the old Broad Street Bullies of Philadelphia and the Buffalo Sabres in the 90s that would bully people. And you probably think that the Boston Bruins are massive bullies, including the rat Brad Marchand. But in basketball, there's no team that has the bully persona and makes the bully persona their own other than the Detroit Pistons. But in essence, that's just how it goes. And for a lot of people, expansion teams will be there. As the 2003 Detroit Pistons almost got popped in the mouth by an unexpected team. I know that I kind of messed up the intro because I just remembered who I was going to do the intro for. But anyway, I don't do take two. So anyhow, sometimes a team, it's like, why would there be there? Like for baseball, it would probably be, well, a lot of people say, well, Seattle, because the Pacific Northwest, they're not really into baseball, but that's wrong. Can't really think of a city that doesn't deserve their team as much. Even Washington. For football, it would probably be Jacksonville. It's like Jacksonville. They're a college town, if you ask me. For hockey, it's got to be like Arizona when the Coyotes were in town, or Atlanta getting their two teams, or possibly even Dallas, although you can kind of say, okay, that's my, or Utah even. But this city is weird. It's the Magic Kingdom. Behold the essence of the Orlando Magic. We're playing basketball sims. We're playing basketball sims. He's playing what if NBA? Cutter's doing what if NBA? Yeah. Oh, all the teams around the world got to know that the Raptors are number one. But what about the Bulls, Wizards, and Pistons? They all have great what ifs. Stories about old teams like the Kansas City Kings and maybe even the Minneapolis Lakers. But we all know we're going to do some basketball. He's doing basketball. He's doing basketball. What ifs? Cutter's doing what if NBA? So what if NBA? So the Orlando Magic were one of the expansion teams in the great expansion of the 1980s. The NBA wanted to add more teams in the 80s, and they had a favorable TV thing from CBS. And, Bird and Magic were bringing things to life. So four cities got their chance to get teams. They decided to put two teams in Florida, Miami and Orlando. Miami would start in 1988, Orlando in 1989. They would put a team in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's more for the college people because in North Carolina had like Wake, Duke, NC State, and North Carolina. And Minnesota even got a team, well, back to a spiritual home because the Minneapolis Lakers were the first dynasty in the 1950s. So, yeah, so Charlotte played in 88 and Minnesota started in 1989. So Orlando waited and waited, and they were called the Orlando Magic because they were part of the Magic Kingdom, and the Magic Kingdom is Disneyland, Disney World in Orlando. A lot of people will get confused because there's a Disneyland and a Disney World. Disneyland is in California, and Disney World is in Orlando. Nevertheless, Orlando also has Universal Studios and a few other things, theme parks. But yeah, the Orlando Magic, and they were okay, but they weren't perfect. In 1992, they were the worst team around, and they got the ball to pick Shaq from LSU, who decided to declare for the NBA draft. He was a once in a lifetime player, and Orlando won the draft lottery and picked him up. Shaq had to change his number from 33 to 32 because of another player and all that. But yeah, Shaq made 32 and the Magic respectable. In his rookie campaign, he got Orlando only one game short of the playoffs. They missed the 8th seed by 1 over Indiana. So Orlando were out of the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, with the NBA lottery's weighted ball distance, and Orlando got one ping pong ball, 1 out of 67. And out of freaking nowhere, they beat the Philadelphia 76ers and the Dallas Mavericks to get the number 1 pick. As NBC did the draft lottery between between halves of a playoff game, Bob Costas couldn't say anything but unbelievable. This is in the category of Go Figure, which is in part of Sports Illustrated. One ping pong ball out of 67, and they got it. So Orlando got the number 1 pick and drafted Chris Webber from Michigan, who, of course, was the guy who called the elevated timeout. Webber would not actually stay in Orlando, as Orlando decided to swap him to Golden State, who had the number 3 pick, and took Penny Hardaway from Memphis. So Orlando ended up with Penny Hardaway, and Golden State ended up with Chris Webber. It actually worked out for Orlando better, because Chris Webber would be better off with Sacramento, and Penny Hardaway, like, other than Orlando, what else can you say about Penny? Anyway, Penny Hardaway was a great player for Orlando, and he complemented Shaq, and they built around those two. It got Orlando so good that in '95 they got to the Eastern Conference playoffs against Chicago with a returning MJ, but MJ was not a full season MJ, and the Bulls lost to the Magic in 6. The Magic had to fend off the Pacers, who had a Rick Smits game-winning shot. But anyway, Orlando went to the were the Eastern Conference champs against Houston, and would be the odds-on favorite because they had more wins than Houston. Orlando had a chance. Nick Anderson, all he had to do was make a couple free throws from the line, and Orlando would win game 1. He couldn't do it. He had 4 chances and missed all 4. Meanwhile, they were still up by 3 points, but Kenny the Jet Smith, yes, that Kenny Smith, hit a 3-ball to tie the game, send it overtime, and then Hakeem with a tip shot with half a second left in the overtime. Houston would go on to demoralize Orlando in 4 straight. Shaq was getting too big for his britches. Orlando could not give him the money with him and Penny Hardaway, so they decided to let Shaq go to free agency, and he went to LA and made the money and won 3 NBA titles with those Lakers. Meanwhile, Orlando tried as they might, they just couldn't get over the hump. They ended up picking up Tracy McGrady from the Raptors. Yeah, of course, pissing me off in the process because I don't want a Laker. I mean, I don't want a team getting my Raptors. So anyway, T-Mac was in Orlando, was doing quite well, and then he just couldn't lead on. Grant Hill, at the end of his career, was in Orlando Magic, and they couldn't do much. Orlando did get to the 2009 final against the Lakers and took them to 5 games, but the Lakers were the fucking Lakers with Kobe. No Shaq, but they still had Kobe, and they had Magic. Even Andrew Bynum. Orlando would not do too badly. They got some decent players like Zach LaVine, who was at Slam Dunk. No, Aaron Gordon, who was always a bridesmaid but never a bride in the dunk contest, and Paulo Banchero. So they're a young team. They're looking pretty good. And Orlando, even when this is being taped, has just changed their look. They changed their logo. They changed their jerseys. I kind of like it. And I'm not wearing blue and black on purpose. But yeah, I like Orlando's new look. I really do. So anyway, let's talk about the 2003 Orlando Magic. So we talk about the 2003 Magic, and the rule always is in play. No finals replays, because I could finals replays till the cows come home. I might do that in a future series and all that, but the fact of the matter is that, you know, that's what I'll do. Maybe one day I might do like finals thing for each franchise and all that, like see if there's a rematch and all that, and do some kind of video. But the rule is we don't do a finals thing when we talk about this. So anyway, this was the 14th season of the Magic. They got Shawn Kemp off for the free agency. Grant Hill had continuing injuries and would ruin him, and Horace Grant would only play 5 games. Orlando would trade Mike Miller, who was a pretty good sharpshooter, to Memphis for Drew Gooden and Gordon Gierchek. The Magic did win 42 games and were 8th in the conference. T-Mac looked pretty good. He was 4th in MVP voting. All that. Drew Gooden was named first team All Rookie. The Magic had a 3-1 series lead over the Detroit Pistons, but lost the next 3. I mean, to take out the number 1 seed when you were number 8, you have got to take your opportunities. It just doesn't make sense. So Orlando I kept thinking that Orlando was up 3 games to 0. Well, Jeff, you dimwit. I realized Orlando had a chance and they fumbled it. How? I mean, because you could be like the '94 Nuggets or the '99 Knicks with an 8 seed being a 1 seed. Sean Kemp would retire. Daryl Armstrong went to New Orleans, and Horace Grant went to the Lakers. So the guys you see: Daryl Armstrong, Andrew DeClerc, Pat Garrity, Drew Gooden, Horace Grant, Grant Hill, Stephen Hunter, Sean Kemp, the Rain Man, Tracy McGrady, Jack Vaughn, and Chris Whitney. What else? Unfortunately, Grant Hill just kept getting injured. If he wasn't injured, I think Orlando would have been much better. They ended up losing a tiebreak, I guess, to Milwaukee for the 7 seed. Pistons were number 1, the Nets were number 2, and the Pacers were number 3. So yeah, it's actually crazy seeing the Pistons have 50 wins and then they end up with the number 2 pick. I can't remember how they got that pick, but nevertheless. So yeah, they were up 3 games to 1 after 2 home wins against Detroit, and it looked good for them. But all of a sudden, they fell off a cliff, losing by 15 points every one of the 3 games. Well, they did have McGrady, Gooden, and Gridgeback being the starters, with Jack Vaughn and DeClerc doing their job. So anyway, yeah, Tracy McGrady was the scoring champ. I did not know that. So they lost Mike Miller fire trade, which was stupid because Mike Miller was a pretty good 3-point shooter, and got Sean Kemp, but well, they got Drew Gooden. So yeah, good for Orlando, but bad for a lot of things. So anyway, let's talk about what if the 2003 Orlando Magic moved on to the next round. All right, so the 2003 Magic would have faced the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs. Now, of course, basketball, unlike hockey, doesn't reseed throughout the playoffs. So yeah, so Orlando would have the 1-8 would have won the 4-5 winner, and that was Philadelphia. So what would happen if Orlando had to take care of Philadelphia and all that? Game one sees the Magic get their butts handed to them by almost 40 points. AI puts up 23 points in the win. McGrady, 22 points. Gridgeback, 10. Garrity and Kemp only 7. Armstrong, 4. Jacques Vaughn, 7. Mike Miller. Well, Mike Miller was traded during the season. So, yeah, this simulation, the guys who played for the 2003 Magic, even though they weren't there, like Mike Miller, would be on the squad. There's Horace Grant. Grant Hill only played 4 minutes because of injury. Horace Grant, yeah. He was a former Bull and Magic icon. Chris Whitney, Oyedeji, Pat Burke. The Sixers, 23 from AI. Snow, Van Horn, McKee, and Coleman, also double digits. Todd McCullough, Canadian, from Winterpeg, 15 points in 18 minutes. Monty Williams, Tyrone Hill, Greg Buckner, Kenny Satterfield, John Solomons, not the broadcaster. Kenny Thomas, Brian Skinner, Mark Bryant, Rencias, and Art Long from the University of Cincy. Game two would see the Magic go to double overtime and get their butts handed to them. AI puts up 40 points. McGrady puts up 44 points in 50 minutes. The 4 quarters, 48 minutes, and then overtime is 5 minutes, so 58 minutes. So 50 of the possible 58 minutes, Tracy McGrady played. Pat Garrity got 6 fouls and got ejected, obviously. 6 fouls, you're out. The bench didn't really do too much. Tyrone Hill got 11 points off the bench in 15 minutes. AI played 53 minutes and got 40 points. Eric Snow played 47 minutes. Van Horn played 43 minutes and got 28, which was pretty good. So Orlando is in deep, deep trouble. Back home, they get their butts handed to them by the Sixers 109-88 as AI puts up 30.6 rebounds. Doing his job, Snow, Van Horn, McKee, and Coleman. I didn't really have what a Magic could do. I could have done the 95 Magic. What if they played the Rockets one more time? But obviously not. So anyway, get all that done. The bench really didn't do much for Philly or Orlando for that matter. Girochek only got 2 points in 30 minutes. 2? Like freak. Drew Gooden got 5 points in 5 minutes. Mike Miller got 7 and 9. The clerk got 6 and 10. I mean, Chris Whitney took 4 shots. He could have put some in. But anyway, game 4 would be a sweep. Yep, the Sixers would have swept the Magic. So I kind of took up too much of your time, but Orlando got their butts handed to them. They got swept. The Magic Kingdom would have faltered. Tracy would have got 35 points. T-Mac was great, but, one player can't make a whole team good because, the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. But yeah, the Sixers would have went on to probably lose to the Nets in the Eastern Finals, who then lost to the Spurs in real life in the finals. So yeah, Orlando would have been fucked. Sorry, but that's the way it goes. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.